I still remember the way the hallway smelled faintly of lavender that night, a quiet scent that didn't belong to me but clung to everything in that house. I had only been staying at my uncle's place for a week, and most evenings were uneventful. Dinner, the hum of the television, the slow settling of a house that wasn't mine. But that night something shifted. I was lying on the couch, scrolling absently through my phone, when I heard her voice. "Could you come here for a second?" she called. Not my uncle. His wife. There was nothing unusual about her tone, and yet my pulse jumped anyway. I stood up too quickly, brushing my palms against my jeans as though I needed to prepare myself for something. Her voice had come from the bedroom at the end of the hall, a place I never dared to step near. It felt private, marked off. Still, I walked down, each step sounding too loud on the wooden floor. When I reached the doorway, she was there, sitting on the edge of the bed, a book half open in her lap. She looked up slowly, almost as if she hadn't expected me to actually come. Her eyes lingered a moment too long. "The lamp?" she said softly, nodding toward the bedside table. "The bulb flickered earlier. Could you check it?" It was a simple thing. Nothing charged, nothing dangerous. And yet the air between us felt different, stretched, delicate, as though one wrong move might shatter it. I crossed the room, careful not to brush too close, but the scent of her perfume caught me off guard. Something floral, faint but undeniable. My hand tightened on the lamp. "It's fine," I muttered after twisting the bulb, though I hadn't really checked it properly. My voice came out lower than I intended. "Good," she replied, closing the book in her lap. But she didn't stand. She didn't move at all. Instead, she studied me, her chin resting lightly against her hand. "You're quieter than I thought you'd be. Your uncle said you talk all the time?" I shifted on my feet, caught between embarrassment and something else I didn't want to name. "Maybe I just don't know what to say here." Her lips curved, not quite a smile, but close. "Honest answer." There was a pause, too long to be comfortable. She tapped her fingers against the book once, twice, then set it aside. I noticed then how her shoulders sloped as though she carried something heavy, not tonight, but always. And the way she looked at me wasn't the way someone's aunt by marriage was supposed to look. I should have left. I should have made some excuse and gone back to the couch. Instead, I stayed, my hands shoved awkwardly into my pockets. "Do you miss home?" she asked suddenly. The question caught me off guard. "Sometimes," I admitted. "It's quieter here, though." "Too quiet, maybe." She nodded, her eyes flicking to the window where the curtains barely stirred. "Yes. Too quiet." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It pressed in around us, thick with something neither of us was willing to name. Her gaze held mine, steady, unflinching, as though she was waiting for me to speak, or to do something. My throat tightened. I parted my lips, but before I could say anything, the sharp sound of the front door unlocking cut through the air. We both turned toward the hallway. And just like that, the moment was broken. The sound of the front door unlocking scattered the air like broken glass. My uncle's voice carried faintly down the hall, and she straightened immediately, her face smoothing into composure as though nothing had happened. I mumbled a quick good night and slipped out before he rounded the corner. But the moment didn't leave me. It stayed with me the whole night, the way her gaze had held mine, how close I'd stood to her perfume, the quiet we shared that felt nothing like silence. The next morning, I tried to tell myself it was nothing. She was older, married, my uncle's wife, for God's sake. She must have just been lonely, or bored, or maybe she'd only wanted the lamp fixed. But every time I replayed her voice in my head, soft and careful, I felt my chest tighten. That evening, I found her sitting alone at the kitchen table. A glass of wine in front of her, untouched. She glanced up as I walked in. "Your uncle's working late again," she said, her tone casual, though her fingers circled the rim of the glass over and over. I poured myself some water, sitting down across from her. For a moment neither of us spoke. You know, she began slowly, when I was your age I thought life would feel fuller by now. She gave a soft laugh that didn't reach her eyes. But somehow it gets quieter, doesn't it? Not always in a good way. Her words sat heavy in the air. I'd always thought of her as composed, untouchable, but now I saw cracks in the surface. A woman who smiled when people looked, but let her shoulders sag when no one was watching. I wanted to say something, anything, but what came out was clumsy. You don't seem like someone who's missing much. She raised her brows, amused. Is that a compliment, or are you just being polite? Both, I admitted, heat rising in my face. She smiled then, but it was smaller, more fragile. My first marriage didn't last. I thought I knew what I was doing. Turns out I didn't. I met your uncle later and he's good. Steady. But sometimes steady can feel a lot like standing still. Her words burrowed deeper than I wanted them to. I thought of my own life, half-finished classes, jobs that didn't stick, girlfriends who never stayed long. Always moving, never steady. We were opposite ends of a spectrum, yet somehow, I understood what she meant. I caught myself staring at her hands, slender, elegant, resting near her glass. Without thinking, I reached for my water, and as I set it down, the back of my hand brushed against hers. Neither of us moved. It wasn't a deliberate touch, not really, but it lingered, charged in its stillness. My pulse roared in my ears. She didn't pull away, only glanced down at the contact, then up at me again. The room felt too small, too warm. And in that wordless space, everything we weren't supposed to say hung between us. The next few days blurred together, but that touch on the back of her hand refused to leave my mind. It played in loops, small and electric, every time I caught sight of her. I tried to avoid her, lingering longer outside, pretending to be busy. But the house wasn't big enough to hide. One evening, I walked into the kitchen and found her by the sink, rinsing a plate. She looked over her shoulder at me, water still running. You've been quiet, she said. I don't want to bother you. Her laugh was short, almost sharp. You don't bother me. That should have eased me, but instead it tangled me tighter. I stepped closer without meaning to, drawn in like a tide. The hum of the refrigerator, the dripping faucet, even the faint hum of traffic outside, everything slowed to a pulse between us. Do you ever? I started, then stopped. The words caught in my throat. She turned, drying her hands with a towel. Her eyes searched mine. Ever what? My chest tightened. I wanted to say it, that I thought about her too much, that her voice lingered in my head at night. But before I could answer, the sound of keys jingling at the front door sliced through the air. My uncle's voice followed, cheery and unaware. Smells good in here. She stepped back instantly, folding the towel too neatly, her composure snapping back into place. I shoved my hands in my pockets, throat dry. Dinner that night was unbearable. He asked about my classes, about sports, about things I barely heard. She poured him wine, laughed at the right times, touched his arm like it was natural. But every time her eyes flicked my way, my pulse spiked. Halfway through, he leaned back in his chair. Honey, did you get a chance to send that email for me? Her hand froze on the stem of her glass, just for a moment. Not yet. I'll do it later. The smallest crack, but I noticed. I noticed everything now. Later that night, I sat in my room with the door half closed, trying to drown out my own thoughts. A soft knock came. I opened it to find her standing there, barefoot, hair slightly undone. She kept her voice low. He's asleep. Every nerve in my body lit up. You shouldn't be here, I whispered. I know. She hesitated, glancing past me into the quiet room. But I couldn't sleep. We stood so close the air between us felt charged. She stepped inside, just far enough that the door brushed her shoulder as I shut it behind her. Her hand lifted, almost touching my face, then faltered halfway. "This is wrong," she breathed, but she didn't move back. I leaned in without thinking, the world narrowing to the inches between us. My lips hovered just shy of hers, not touching, not yet. And then, a floorboard creaked down the hall. We froze, breathless. The floorboard creak still echoed in my head long after the hallway went silent again. We stood frozen in my room, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her breath, but neither of us moved. Finally, she stepped back, pressing a hand to her forehead as though steadying herself. "This can't happen," she whispered, her voice fraying at the edges. I wanted to agree. I wanted to be rational. Instead, the words tumbled out rough, unsteady. "Then why are you here?" Her eyes flashed to mine, not angry, but cornered, vulnerable. "Because I can't seem to stay away," she said, barely audible. The honesty in her tone struck me harder than any touch could. My chest ached with something I couldn't name. I reached for her instinctively, my hand brushing her wrist, holding her there as though she might vanish. "Do you ever think about me?" The question slipped out, reckless, dangerous. Her lips parted, but no sound came at first. Then, a whisper. "Too much." The silence that followed wasn't empty, it pulsed. My grip tightened slightly, and her other hand lifted, trembling, as if she meant to touch me but stopped halfway, fingers curling against her palm. And then it snapped. She pulled away sharply, pacing the small room, her arms wrapped around herself. "You don't understand what this would mean," she said, voice breaking into fragments. "I'm married. To your uncle. I gave up too much once before, I can't." I cut her off, the words ripping out before I could stop them. "I don't care." The room went still. She turned toward me, stunned. My breath came hard, uneven. "You should care," she said finally, her tone fierce, though her eyes shone with something else entirely. "Because once this starts, it doesn't stop. And you'll hate me for it." I shook my head, stepping closer, desperation bleeding into every move. "I couldn't hate you. My throat closed on the words, but I knew what I'd almost said. Her gaze locked onto mine, unblinking, as though daring me to finish. Instead, I reached out, brushing my fingers lightly against hers. This time, she didn't pull back. She let out a shaky laugh, almost bitter. "You're too young to know what you're asking for." "Then tell me to stop," I challenged softly, my hand still grazing hers. Her lips trembled, but no words came. The tension coiled tighter, unbearable, as though the whole house was holding its breath with us. I leaned closer, just enough that her perfume enveloped me, her warmth brushing against my skin. For one suspended heartbeat, it felt inevitable. A confession, a kiss, something that would break us open and change everything. And then, a knock rattled the bedroom door. My uncle's voice, muffled but clear. "You awake in there?" She froze, eyes wide, her hand still caught in mine. The knock at my door sent her bolting back a step, her hand slipping from mine as though burned. I called out quickly. "Yeah, I'm awake," forcing my voice steady. "All right." My uncle's voice drifted through. "Big day tomorrow. Don't stay up too late." His footsteps faded down the hall. Only then did I look at her again. She stood rigid, arms folded across her chest, her face pale. "You see?" she whispered. "This is exactly what I meant." I wanted to tell her it didn't matter, that the world outside this room could stay locked away if we wanted it to. But she slipped past me before I could answer, the hem of her robe brushing my leg as she disappeared into the hall. Sleep didn't come. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the ghost of her hand still on mine. The twist came the next morning. I padded into the kitchen, hair messy, eyes heavy, only to freeze. My uncle sat at the table, coffee in hand, a letter unfolded in front of him. She stood nearby, clutching her phone, her face unreadable. You didn't tell me he was thinking of leaving, my uncle said suddenly, turning his gaze on me. I blinked. What? He tapped the letter. Application for an internship. Out of state. Starts in 2 weeks. My stomach dropped. I hadn't told anyone. I hadn't even finished the forms. I didn't submit it yet, I stammered. His eyes narrowed. Then why was it open on her computer last night? Her eyes flicked to mine for the briefest second, wide and sharp with warning. My chest tightened. She had gone into my things? Or no, she had seen something I hadn't meant her to. She cut in smoothly, voice calm. He left the document on the desktop. I asked him about it. That's all. But her hand, gripping the phone, trembled almost imperceptibly. A silence stretched between the three of us, suffocating. My uncle finally exhaled, pushing the letter aside. Well, I suppose it's your choice. Just wish you'd told me. He stood, kissed her cheek absently, and left for work. The door shut. The moment it clicked closed, I rounded on her. Why did you tell him? Her jaw tightened. I didn't. He found it himself. You wanted him to. I accused, my voice low. You wanted him to think I was leaving. Her breath caught. She turned away, bracing a hand against the counter. Because maybe you should leave. The words sliced clean through me. Is that what you want? I asked, softer now. She spun, eyes wet, anger and fear tangled together. What I want doesn't matter. What happens if he finds out does. Do you understand? Everything I've built. Her voice broke. I can't lose it. Not again. The rawness in her tone stole my reply. We stood there, shattered by truths neither of us wanted spoken aloud. And yet, when I stepped closer, she didn't move away. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a new message lighting the screen. I caught a glimpse of my uncle's name. Her face drained of color. Her phone buzzed again, rattling against the counter. She didn't touch it. Didn't even look. I stepped closer, my voice unsteady. Are you going to answer him? Her throat worked, but no sound came. Finally, she shook her head, pressing the phone face down. I can't talk to him right now. The words hung heavy, dangerous. You can't keep doing this, I said, more sharply than I meant to. Pretending nothing's wrong. Pretending last night didn't happen. Her eyes snapped up, fierce but fragile. And what do you want me to say? That I think about you when I shouldn't? That every time you walk into the room, I forget who I'm supposed to be? The air cracked open between us. Yes, I whispered. I want you to say that. She laughed once, broken. You're too young to carry this. You don't know what it costs. I stepped closer, until only inches separated us. My heart hammered, but I forced the words out anyway. Then let me choose if it's worth it. For a long moment, she just stared at me, eyes shining, lips trembling like she was balancing on a knife's edge. Then something gave way. Her shoulders slumped, the fight draining out of her. You remind me of who I used to be, she said quietly. Before the compromises. Before the quiet. Her hand lifted, tentative, and rested against my chest. The warmth of her palms seared through the thin fabric of my shirt. And that terrifies me. I covered her hand with mine. You terrify me too. Her breath hitched, and then she leaned forward, her forehead resting against mine. Not a kiss, not yet, but close enough that I felt her every breath. The moment stretched, fragile and infinite. Then she pulled back suddenly, tears brimming. If we do this, there's no undoing it. No pretending it didn't happen. Then don't pretend, I said, the words almost pleading. Not with me. Her silence was an answer of its own. The walls she'd built cracked open wider than ever, but still held. She turned, wiping her face, forcing composure back into her voice. He trusts me. He's good to me. And if this ever came out, she trailed off, shaking her head, it would destroy everything. My chest ached, but I stepped back, giving her space. For a moment I thought that was it, that she'd walk away and leave me standing in the ruins of what almost was. But at the doorway she stopped. Her hand lingered on the frame, knuckles white. I can't promise you forever, she said, her voice breaking. But I can't pretend I don't feel this anymore. She glanced back at me, her eyes raw, unguarded. And then she left, the echo of her confession hanging in the room like smoke. I sank onto the chair, head in my hands, knowing nothing would ever be the same again. The house felt heavier after her confession. Every sound carried, the tick of the clock, the hum of the fridge, even the faint creak of the floorboards when she moved in the next room. I couldn't shake the echo of her words. I can't pretend I don't feel this anymore. The next morning, I tried to leave early, before breakfast, but she was already in the kitchen. No makeup, hair tied loosely back, still in her robe. She looked tired, but softer somehow. You were really going to leave without saying anything? She asked. I shifted, keys tight in my fist. I thought maybe that's what you wanted. Her gaze held mine, steady this time. No. That's not what I want. The truth of it dropped between us, simple and unguarded. I set my keys on the counter and sat down, my throat dry. She poured herself coffee, then mine, sliding the mug across the table like it was the most ordinary thing in the world. Except nothing between us was ordinary anymore. You know what this means, I said finally. She nodded. It means I've been lying to myself for a long time. And I don't want to anymore. I wanted to reach across the table, to take her hand, to make it real, but the front door shutting upstairs froze me. My uncle, leaving for work early again. His footsteps moved across the floor, then out the door. The house grew silent once more. She let out a shaky breath, one hand covering her mouth as though she'd been holding it in all night. Every day I tell myself I've built something steady, that I should be grateful. But then you came here and… She stopped herself, eyes darting to mine. You made me remember what it feels like to want. Her words lodged deep in my chest. I reached for her then, slowly, giving her time to pull back. She didn't. Our fingers laced together across the table, her grip trembling but sure. It wasn't fireworks or a grand confession. It was quiet. Real. Two people admitting they were tired of pretending. What happens now? I asked. Her smile was small, sad, and beautiful all at once. We stop lying. Even if it's hard. Even if it costs. For the first time, I saw her without the weight of regret shadowing her face. And for the first time, I believed we could make something out of this, not perfect, not easy, but ours. We sat there until the coffee went cold, our hands never parting. And in that fragile morning light, I knew one thing for certain: whatever came next, we'd already crossed the line. Not in whispers, not in silence, but in choosing each other. Did you enjoy the story? What kind of stories would you like to hear next?